All right, good morning, everyone. Calling to order the meeting of the Council of Economic Advisors for what is today? Friday, July 11th. And really excited to welcome a whole bunch of new members. We're going to go around the room. We have a lot of people in the room today. Very exciting. We're going to go around and do some introductions. First off, though, if anybody is recording this meeting, Peter O'Neill of The Observer is with us. They need to let the chair know now. I don't see that we have any extra committee attendees, so I'm going to assume this is not an issue. So first things first, we have a whole lot of new members. I want to congratulate all of our new members for getting sworn in right on time. Yay, good for you. Thank you. And I want to remind our older members, our existing members, that
more experienced
members, including myself, that if your term had expired, Adam Block, Adam Mixner, Bob Henschel, who's not yet with us, Mike, and Buren, you're gonna need to get re-sworn in, just soon. It's okay if you haven't done it.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Oh, good morning. Okay, so we're gonna go around, and why don't we start with the folks online, and we'll just do some quick introductions, your name, what role you fill, and I don't know, a tiny bit about you. We're gonna move quickly because we got a lot to talk about, but I'll just kind of call on you, and we'll do this also as attendance if we need to do our roll call, okay? So it's a twofer. So Lise Elcock, we'll start with you.
Hi, I added my headphones. Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can? Okay. Hi, I'm Lise Elcock. I'm the chair of this committee with Heidi Frail, and I sit in the chamber seat. We are now officially the Charles River Regional Chamber for a few years now. I've been with the chamber for close to 13 years as the membership and development director, and I'm a 35 plus resident of Needham and have raised my 3 boys in the town and the schools. So thank you so much. I really love doing this work with Heidi and this team, and really happy to welcome all the new faces. So thank you so much for stepping up.
Thanks, Lise. Andrew?
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Litvinenko. Andy is fine. I am a member on the Council of Economic Advisors. I was born and raised in Needham, so very excited to contribute to the council. My background is primarily in government finance and economics. So I worked with the Baker administration in the budget office, and then was the state's labor economist for a couple of years. So very excited to be on board and look forward to working with you all.
Awesome. Adam Block. Adam, if you're talking, you're muted. There you go.
I'm just driving into the city, so I did like switch screens to unmute. So I'm Adam Block. I am on the planning board, past chair of the planning board and past chair of this council, and excited to work with new faces and existing members. I kind of approach this by my background has been in real estate. I also have a background in creative arts, film and TV. And, I see the town has significant, capital investments, major projects, and I see the economic development as an engine to help, defer the residential tax base, but still trying to find a way to attract and grow our economic base. So very excited to hear from some of our newer members.
Okay, great. And then we're gonna go just around the table in the room. I'll start. I'm Heidi Frail. I'm the chair of the select board currently, and also chair of this committee, and delighted to have all of you here, and especially in the room. This is great. I am the select board seat, so there you go.
Dave Downing, new member. I moved to Needham in 2019. I'm raising 2 young girls here who are both going to be at Newman this year. I fill kind of the commercial real estate role as well as Adam in terms of, but I have more of a retail slant for the work I do. My company Graffito has been around for almost 20 years, working primarily with large institutional landlords. We do some tenant work as well. but largely focused on kind of improving neighborhoods and bringing in really great tenants. So that's largely the work I do.
Amazing.
I'm Amy Hanson. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Engagement for the last 2 years. Prior to that, for 3 years, I was the town's Economic Development Manager and staffed this committee, so it's nice to be back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dina Krieger. I've been in Needham for about 25 years now. I love our town, and I'm a new town meeting member as of this year in Precinct J. And I'm excited to be here. I have a small business that I've had for about 10 years, and before that, I was in the corporate world in sales and business development for a long time before I left the corporate world. So excited to be here and looking forward to working with all of you guys.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Teachout. I work at Dedham Savings Bank. I've been in community banking for 17 years now. All in Needham. I am a fourth generation Needhamite. I was born here, raised here, great grandparents still have family that live here. So the umbilical cord runs from here to Medfield, which is where I currently reside. And I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks.
Everyone, I'm Jake Shapiro. I'm a new member. I've been in Needham for about 3 years now. I am a town meeting member and I have 2 young children, one of who will be entering the school system this year. I'm a bit of a non-traditional background to this group. I've been in big tech for quite a while, managing B2B, B2C, and marketplace products for Instagram and Zillow and Amazon, and looking forward to kind of bringing some of that thought process from those companies and also my passion for what's going on in Needham to this committee.
Morning, I'm Schwab Raza, a Needham resident for close to 25 years, raised 2 children here, own a downtown business, manufacturing business.
Mike Wilcox, I'm with the Bullfinch Companies. I'm not a Needham resident, but I've been living in the industrial park for 25 years. As Director of Leasing at Bullfinch, I handle primarily office, lab, medical office, some retail. And my focus, I think, as I mentioned previously, is primarily on holdings that we have in the park, and including future development as well. And I would just say, welcome to Dave. It's taken you a long time to get here. I've been chasing him for a while for this, so I'm glad to see you here. You have a valuable voice at the table.
Thanks. I am Bill Mahoney. I'm a retired CPA. Live in the same house I was born in Needham. I am the hospital representative. I was on the hospital board for 10 years and now I've been an advisor for 5 years. Involved in a bunch of other organizations in town. So happy to do the hospital asked me to sit on the committee. So very happy to be here. It's a very exciting committee. So thank you.
Okay, well, so we have a bunch of things on our agenda to discuss. The first is just this idea of in-person versus virtual meetings. I think, typically we've scheduled this meeting at 8 a.m. Friday mornings because everyone would be able to, just reserve a tiny bit of your morning once a month for this. Now that we have a whole bunch of new members, just want to make sure that the meeting time is okay, and that everyone can make it generally. Of course, we're all going to miss some meetings, but also want to just encourage this business of being in the room at least every so often. I know that we all have busy lives and I have a full-time job too. So, but I think being in the room and really being able to talk to each other and get to know each other is really important for the group dynamic. And so I'm just hoping that we can all make an effort to do this as often as possible. So the stuff that we want to talk about today is to brainstorm about this committee's activities. So I think we have all, I hope, reviewed the charge of the committee. I think for a long time, this committee has been very focused on land use and zoning, which is, as Adam mentioned, like absolutely relevant to economic development. But I want to see if we can try and broaden our focus to include all economic development, to focus on the different areas of that our small businesses are clustered in as well, and of course the industrial park as well. we had previously in this group talked about breaking the focus of this group into the geographical areas of Chestnut Street, Needham Center, Needham Heights, and then the park. I think all of these areas have different challenges that they're gonna be facing over the next period of time. I mean, now and forever, always. We also have thrown around the idea of trying to re-engage with a business association. This is something that has been an idea, like, did exist for a while, may still exist in some smaller, less frequent format, but how the town might engage with our small businesses, because as we heard from feedback from our Envision planning, a lot of the businesses feel very vulnerable right now, and frankly, I think always. And then another thing that we've talked about is potentially having this group be the sponsor of an economic development study, whether for these individual areas or for the town as a whole, which I would personally be very interested in pursuing. It's something that has come up in the context of many of our projects, and I think would actually tie a lot of our projects together and make a lot of sense for this community. So what I'd love to do is kind of throw it out there for an open brainstorming discussion of what people are interested in. I think we need to decide what our goals are in order to make a realistic plan to achieve anything. And so we need to have a discussion about that. I'd really love it if everyone would feel free to really throw things on the table and not worry about, you know, what the minutes are gonna say or what people might say afterwards, just kind of free form, so that we can really get good ideas out on the table and figure out what this group wants to achieve. So with that, I'll kind of just open it up. I know you have ideas.
I always have ideas, which is the problem. I'm up at 2 and 3 in the morning writing stuff down. No, I think it's great. I love to hear Heidi's overall thinking about what the group is meant to do. I have interests in lots of different areas, so all of those things sound great. I certainly think an economic development study makes sense. It's always helpful to have some sort of roadmap to guide us, the town, on where we're going, and it helps to kind of streamline thoughts and give us specific things to work on. So I love the idea of an economic development study. I assume that would be hiring somebody, or would the committee do it?
No, the
Just
committee
curious.
would not do it.
Okay, so you could hire.
Yeah,
someone to-
so I don't want to interrupt,
That's okay.
but I'm
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
I feel like it's important to say a couple of baseline things. First of all, Amy, who has consented to join us and staff us, already has a job. So we're kind of a little bit at a disadvantage right now. We don't have, you know, a lot of the work of Needham's committees, while they're staffed by volunteers and we do a lot of the direction, the truth is that the staff does the lion's share of the actual work. And especially the, you know, procurement and drafting of documents and so on, that largely falls to the staff. We don't really have like a full-time staff member right now. And of course, staff members who staff committees also have a job to do. So we have to be mindful of that load that we're asking of people. But I think when we talk about an economic development plan, yeah, this would be the sponsor. We would work with the consultant once a consultant is chosen. Probably we would start by working with MAPC, or at least investigating, and investigating could be part of the work that this committee does, but the bulk of the work would be done by a consultant. And, you know, I think later on, I had also put on the agenda to have a discussion of the open meeting law and how committees can work outside of committees. So that's something that we need to talk about and address so that we understand the amount of work that we really can realistically take on as a committee. So just want to sort of throw that out there, that it's very hard to get work done outside of an actual committee meeting. And so we have to be careful about when we make our goals, to make sure that they're realistic. You know, especially if we want to keep our meetings to just once a month, or to have like a reasonable duration for these meetings. So, and just to go back to you, so you can finish your thoughts.
No, that's great. So I was just commenting on basically what you were saying, so I think that's a great idea. I don't know if it would tie into some sort of, I don't know how they typically work, if it would tie into like a town, you know, roadmap, if there is one, if not, so love the idea of that. And then with respect to, you know, the downtown neighborhoods and generating, you know, business for the local businesses, I have a strong interest in just, you know, figuring out how our town or folks in town can support, a community in Needham, including, large businesses, small businesses, and residents and town officials to really kind of, form a bit more glue. I have felt over the last few years that there's a lot of, you know, drama and tension in the town, and I think if we had, you know, some sort of community, organization that, you know, worked with a lot of different, organizations in town, whether it's events, supporting small businesses, I think it would go a long way toward, you know, making us a better town. But I love all the things that you mentioned, happy, you know, to work on, you know, whatever, makes sense, but I think there's probably an endless number of things that could be done, and like you said, I guess it's a matter of sort of throwing everything up against the wall and seeing what sticks and figuring out how to make a couple of wins.
Great.
Being on the newer side, like, and some of you have been here decades, generations, has there been an economic development study at any point? Because what I find so interesting about, we live in Needham Center, is everything's so walkable. I love the small businesses that are here. We try to go to a lot of these small businesses for things we need. Versus going to Amazon or some other options, right, that you might have for delivery. Has there been a study done, an economic development study done at any point that anyone's aware of?
Heidi, can I jump in here? Oh, Amy, sorry.
No, please go ahead, Adam.
So Amy and I worked together before on trying to develop. We had when several years ago, we in addition to having a zoning type subcommittee, we had a small business subcommittee that, you know, a number of us would go and speak to and businesses and understand what you know, what some of the impediments were for growth, and we would report back to the committee and make some recommendations to the select board. An example was parking signage, which turned out to be, which the town implemented as an example, but you know, I think we've all seen that the signage wasn't really as effective as what the CEA was intending it to be. There were some other recommendations as well, like, you know, trying to clear as a pilot program maybe some of the snow on the main, I think on Great Plain or something. And that was another recommendation that I think was implemented, and I think was a benefit to some of the businesses when we spoke to them. And then we also had another committee previously look at cluster-based economic development as one economic development theory. And we had another one that was really looking at trying to build like an economic scorecard for the town, which we did several years ago. And that included, and the biggest work of the committee at the time was to create a baseline, like an inventory of all of our businesses. So we had the contact information, we had the type of business, the location of the business, and then that could serve as the basis of an analysis to understand the composition of our existing businesses. For instance, is 20% of our business retail? Is 6% manufacturing? Is 20% another 20% restaurants, financial services? So we have a lot of the base data that could be, I think, used as part of that study, Heidi, which I hope, you know, could be beneficial. And it certainly makes a lot of sense to, to be able to canvas, the different the different geographic areas to understand the different challenges within the business. And it's great to continue on that idea of it's not just about zoning. That I can say that the planning board, we are looking to consider rezoning Great Plain and also unlocking the Charles, which would be zoning efforts that would hopefully stimulate economic development. But the CEA also has a history of looking at small businesses, and then also finally streamlining business in town, which has been an impediment to a number of other businesses and has discouraged businesses from siting in Needham. And years ago, before Amy and I were part of the CEA, I think Mike, you might have been involved, and Rick and Bob Henschel, in coming up with a list of areas that the permitting process and the licensing processes could be streamlined to remove some of the obstacles for business to site here. So that may be something else that we want to look at if the administrative and regulatory burdens, are a competitive disadvantage for growth.
I was just gonna add that the studies that have been done have been very geographic specific. So many years ago, there were groups of MIT students who looked at Needham Center. I worked with a group of really impressive students from BC who looked at the mixed use 128 zoning area, which is behind Staples. That was back in 2021. We also, as Adam alluded to, there was the Babson study that took place in 2020, where they did sort of an economic scorecard. So there's been efforts, but not sort of a overall comprehensive economic study that has looked at the entire town.
Thanks, Adam, for all that history too. Yeah, I think like a status is one thing, but I think a roadmap is another thing. Also, I think there's a distinction there, like, where are we? And I think you need that base information to create a roadmap. But I think for me, what I'd be interested in seeing is more of a roadmap approach, like akin to what the Climate Action Plan Committee put together. I don't know if everyone's familiar with their work, but they did do an assessment for which we would need all this information that Adam just talked about. But then they put together a goal, a place to get to, and then steps to get there. And I think that has made it very easy for the town to take those steps. It allows for financial planning so that we can work all those items or objectives into the budget, and then allows us to break it off piece by piece without having each piece be a project, because the work has already been done and laid out for it. So I think that is something that would be really valuable to define a goal and a vision.
Just a quick question is, would it be, and forgive my ignorance, I'm just learning on some of the stuff. I just had a quick question about what unlocking the Charles meant, but also, would it be possible to see those previous studies? For me, it would just be helpful for the history to kind of
Yes.
get a sense of.
Many of them are already in the town's website, but I have the ones that are, much older. I can circulate to the community. I'd be happy to do that.
I can speak to the Unlocking the Charles, which was Amy had alluded to some work, or spoke about doing some work with a group of students from BC, and the area that she was talking about in the Charles along mixed use 128 and Highland Commercial 128. That's the Charles River is a great community asset that has very little public access, and I think it could be a phenomenal amenity. And if we could unlock it from Highland Avenue all the way through Central Avenue, there's a huge opportunity. There are businesses in that part of the area that that would consider reciting or in some cases selling. And I think that there is a huge opportunity to redevelop, including placemaking for a broader community that would attract kind of micro retail. There is a vision of like some restaurants and food services right along the Charles, kind of like a boardwalk. And and the geographic area over the time is big enough that it could sustain significant housing. And in addition to that, some larger, office development, and in time when the lab market returns, perhaps a lab. But there's there's a lot of opportunity in that area, and the goal is to unlock the Charles and use that as a basis for significant economic development.
Thanks, Adam. Unlock means.
Yeah, got it, thank you.
So I think Heidi and Amy have heard a number of my ideas, and I'm gonna try to share a bunch of them right now. So totally agree with doing an economic study for the town. I think it's really important, and I understand that many
You're
other
gonna have to wait till 9 though, so wait on my toes.
a number of towns do master plans and economic development plans. I think it's something that we absolutely need. As you were saying, Heidi, kind of do a step-by-step roadmap. I know that one of the principal charges of this council is to study, investigate, and appraise townwide economic conditions. So I think it's really important that we start answering like, hey, how is Needham doing economically right now? I don't know if we need to do a longer term study for that, but just understand how we're doing and really kind of delve in to see where the problems and opportunities are. Understanding, for example, like for each of the commercial and industrial areas, like how they're currently, I mean, you can look at their assessed value versus their potential market value and see where the biggest gaps are. That might lead you to focus on that mixed use 128 area. I think another way to look at this as well is Adam was saying at the beginning that, we rely on our commercial, industrial, and retail properties to drive or contribute a lot to our tax base. I think the tax levy represents about 80% of the Needham budget. So we should be thinking about or get a good understanding of what growth rate do we need to hit the town's goals. There's a capital plan, a 5-year capital plan. We know that we have Prop 2.5%, but what kind of development do we need over the next 5-10 years in order to meet those goals? So it'd be great if we had, I think we were mentioning there's the director of finance for the town who would come in and maybe give a kind of a high level overview of where we stand with regard to that, what growth rates we need to hit. And then also, I think Heidi, as you were mentioning, there's zoning that is one component of the economic growth of the town. But I think about, 20% or less comes from local receipts. And so I think we could also look at that to understand, is there any impact we can have on those? I know there's some work to kind of monetize parking, but there might be some other things that we could think about to drive value there. And then finally, I think that what would be kind of really helpful, just understanding in terms of the economic conditions, is understanding kind of current sentiments across town. So maybe as we're talking to all of these businesses in all these different areas, if we come up with a script of just kind of like what's your sentiment on doing business in the town? Are you getting the right foot traffic? Are you getting what you need in terms of resources? So we can kind of get a baseline of where things stand, and we can see where there are gaps and where we can actually build more. And that's something maybe in the short term we can do. And then the other thing that we can do is also survey and talk to, I know there've been a discussion on this committee to have kind of a group of commercial real estate representatives, whether it's agents or even developers, to understand how are they thinking about Needham? How are they talking to people who are looking to lease retail properties here? How are they talking to developers? What is their perception of that? And then what's our perception of what Needham should be? And can we create the right resources to help them market Needham the way that we think it should be marketed? And one way we could do that is we can do the surveys of town members or people in the town. So one thing that we have, I know a lot of in the town, is a lot of demographic information, like how much what was it, like annual income and ages and other things. But capturing information like psychographic information, so that helps us understand what people's interests are, what they want to do. That will help us also kind of understand some opportunities. So for example, excuse me, there's a lot of folks who, like me, they work from home in Needham. I don't know if we have a study of how many people actually work from home or a hybrid. And I know there's this pent up demand for third places where you can do business in Needham at we have great coffee shops here, but is there some more space that we can contribute to working in town? But I think that if we have some of that information and we can get buy-in as well as from people in town, like what type of business they'd like to see, we can get a good, we can almost kind of create like a map to say, hey, like, here's where there's demand. Here's what the commercial real estate agents are hearing and seeing. Here's what businesses are seeing. Maybe we can bring that all together and actually uncover some gaps that could lead to, increased value for real estate in Needham.
Okay.
It's a lot
agree.
there.
I agree with that. Sorry, but so I've seen that before. If like Somerville, I know using them as an example has like a happiness scorecard that sort of they use for their city, and I think it would be really interesting to sort of see what data we have available and then like add on to that to see what kind of metrics we could develop. I know Adam mentioned that like from the economic scorecard, we had some initial numbers around like what the makeup of the businesses are. I think it was like what 20% retail, so on and so forth. So if we have access to that, I think it would be pretty easy to see. We could build some historical like baselines and then continue to update that and to see where we are. But
Yeah, the town does a community survey every 2 years, and,
Right.
and some of that, the happiness index, and maybe not phrased quite that way, but basically this information is a part of that, including a lot of what do you want to see, what kind of services would you like, et cetera. Please, I see you have your hand up.
Full disclosure, I'm on vacation in a communal kitchen. So sorry about that. I thought I was on mute. So I just love all these great ideas, but I do have to share, I've sat in presentations of a lot of these various surveys over the year, the BAPS and the BC. We try to survey our members. They actually pay to belong to our organization. We have over 1,000 of them, and Needham and Newton are our core 2 original towns. So we've been surveying them a lot over the years. I've worked closely with Amy on trying to push out information on anything we do in Needham. We do not get a good result. So just bear in mind, I think post-COVID, it's very important to try to get some of this information, but no matter what we do, we only get a small sample. So I just love these new young people who are working from home. It's a really tough environment for us to reach into. We've held town-wide meetings for retailers at all different times. We've held our dining collaborative is going really strong. The restaurants are up against a lot, and we do get good attendance on that every 2 weeks. But Needham, not so much. They don't come to the Zoom meetings. The town small businesses are so hard pressed to get through their days. So I just want to set some expectations as we go down this road of surveying to the point where it's almost become the S word at our chamber, because everybody wants to do a survey and it becomes a matter of what type of information are we going to get people to respond to. So, but I think everything's worth trying for, and I'd love to hear Mike, the real estate and developer survey of the parks, the current office park. I know it's really hard. You're asked every meeting what's going on over at the office park. We have a group of those people who Adam and Mike are very involved with the chamber, and we do get some engagement with that group, but they're also very hard to tap into as a group to get answers.
I would say that's true across the board. One of the major challenges, but especially for folks who are newer to the committees, is it's always like a huge disappointment to really understand how hard it is to get people to pay attention to any work that you're doing, as much as we try.
But yeah, one thing I just wanted to clarify with the surveys is that for the businesses, I think you actually have to have a script and actually ask them in person, as if like when you're talking to them versus actually sending something out. Even, at the big tech companies, you can never get the businesses to respond. They don't respond to surveys. No one has time to click. But if you get them on the phone and we would give our sales teams like, here's 5 questions to ask.
Yeah.
That is one way that's worked for us. And I'm sure you guys have tried some of those tactics, but I imagine that group meetings, getting people to click on links does not work.
Yeah, well, all of it is problematic, but we'll continue to try. So, forward on ahead. Bob.
So far, wonderful, great input from all of us. So first thing, the timings you ask, and my suggestion should be that this meeting should be in the evening. People like us, small business owners here, always mornings are crazy. So that's just a suggestion. Secondly, your question was what our goals are basically. I think for any town, the goal should be to be conducive to businesses. And the CEA job should be to identify those roadblocks that we have for businesses. For instance, when I moved to this town in 2002, I saw there was no big box store in this area. Like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. I think Restaurant Depot is the only one that is a big block store here, which is not for the resident. Mostly restaurant owners from all around the areas, they come in and they shop there. So we should identify and designate those spaces where those box stores can come in and set up their shop. We are so close to the highway, other towns can come in and shop here. So that's kind of, other than that, it's great input.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone, want to give us a little info on the biz park?
Well, it's still a challenge these days. People working from home haven't, hasn't gone away. And, I think from our perspective, or at least from my perspective in serving on this board, I'd like to, focus on things that make us competitive, make the park an attractive location for businesses to choose to be in, or in some cases remain in when they have other options when their leases are up. And that goes for aesthetically in terms of, the appearance of the park. One of the challenges that we have is that in some office park developments, you have a single ownership sort of structure and they can do everything. We're a little bit more fragmented, although Bullfinch is one of the larger owners in the park, to get people to agree to certain improvements, whether it be signage or landscaping. And then certainly amenities is something that drives the bus for a lot of tenants making decisions about where they want to be located. And we lack some of those, and some places they exist, like a TripAdvisor building, you don't have access to it, so it's always a challenge. And then there's the zoning that I think sometimes hamstrings us in terms of certain uses that either it sets up a special permit or in some cases not allowed at all. Should be like, okay, you want to come here, wait till the next town meeting comes up and let's cross our fingers, which obviously is not a great dynamic for any company that wants to be here. So I don't want to get too granular on that, but as we go forward, it'd be helpful if the board could help us in that regard to be more competitive. So the only other thing I'd add is that I'm not sure if it's on your radar screen, but we have what's called the Needham Crossing Development Corporation, which is basically Children's and Bullfinch that's administering a fund that was developed when the TripAdvisor building was first built. And we've been working with the city of Newton in regards to just both walkability and amenities and rebuilding the rail bridge that connects the Needham Crossing development area off of 4th Ave over into the Christina Street area and beyond, ideally, in terms of some of the amenities that are being created that exist there, as well as being created in the Nordblum development. And we're putting some of our funds forward contingent at this point to help rebuild that. I've been working with the town planners, Barney and Jen, over in Newton, and I don't know whether they've approached the Needham people, but there's some contingent funding that needs to basically be met in order for this project to be green lighted.
Okay, I know that project has been kind of on the radar and discussed, but I'm not aware of any specific asks.
Well, it'd be helpful maybe to just connect on some of that because they deem for whatever reason that they couldn't rebuild it, so it's a whole new build.
Yeah, do you know what the timeline is for that?
I think there's some funds that have been appropriated that need basically other funds to be joined to it for it to happen. And I'm not sure if it's the end of this year or sometime next year, but it's Jen Martin.
We can look into that with.
Because it would be a
Yeah.
great, both bike, pedestrian connection. There's a trail, as some people may know, that runs right by the Charles River Landing development that you can connect into this bridge. And there's commitments on the other side to extend footpath, once you do get over to Christina Street and then work with the Price Center, if you're familiar with, where they are in Christina, to acquire some of their land in order to make this happen. So it's been an ongoing effort, and I think it'd be kind of a positive thing for the park as well.
Is that the bike path that's being proposed to be built over 128? Or no, that's a different one.
No, that's a whole nother.
Okay.
A whole new project, yeah.
But this is,
This is like a closed existing rail bridge, old rail bridge over the Charles, sort of by the.
Charles River Landing is,
Back behind on Christina Street.
it connects in Newton to Christina Street, yeah.
Yeah,
If you were on the new bridge that they built, you know, in terms
Yeah.
of Highland Ave, Needham Street, you could see it. Basically looking towards where
right.
they
It's
have
it's
the,
closed. You can't go on it right now. It's.
originally you could cross.
Get you to, where Northland is building that huge project, where when you go up
Oh,
half, right across the bridge.
But across that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're doing a 40B behind Press Cafe and Chipotle, and it would connect into that.
Right.
And then kind of be a curve over into their new development on Needham Street.
Okay, so I think we have a lot of good ideas. I think we need to think about how to reconcile all of these and put them into sort of a proposal. Basically, this committee is advisory to the select board. So when we formulate our goals and our strategy to achieve those goals, we need to pass that by the select board, get their approval. And especially if one of our goals is to undertake an economic development study, particularly if that involves any funding, you know, et cetera. So, we need to, sort of, I think, narrow down, some of these goals, decide which ones we feel are sort of where we have consensus and what those would involve. And honestly, one of the issues for me is always how do we do this within the time allotted, because I think it bears more discussion than we've had here. But this is the time that we have allotted to us. So, in that context, I just want to talk briefly about the open meeting law restrictions. We need to come back to this issue of goals, but I just want everyone to sort of understand what our restrictions are. Essentially, outside of meetings, committees are not supposed to meet in groups that constitute a quorum. So that's half of the group. And as we discussed earlier, we officially have 15 members. So I'm going to call that 7 people. But in addition, there can be no deliberation outside of a meeting in any group, because deliberation is the work of the committee. So even if you're just talking, like 2 of you are talking, there can't be deliberating.
What do you mean specifically by that? Sorry.
So if we were to, for example, divvy up work that could be done by individuals outside of a meeting, that would be fine as long as you have a list and you execute your list. But if you, for example, lists of questions to ask business owners, as you mentioned, if we all went home with a list and we decided we wanted to call these business members and then discuss the questions, but in doing so, we discover that one of our questions is kind of a stinker and we need to replace it with something. And so I call Jake and say, hey, this question isn't working. What do you think about changing it to this? And you and I make that decision that we're going to change the question. And then maybe we share that information. Both of those things are not okay. You can't deliberate. You can't change the information outside of the public meeting. Everything that we do needs to be within the context of a public meeting. So if we decide, I'm going to call these people and I'm going to ask them these questions and I'm going to bring my answers back to the committee, that's okay. You can do that. But you can't deviate from that plan and you can't discuss amongst yourselves outside of a meeting. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that distinction because that's where we run afoul. And I will say that I personally am subject to many investigations about my activities. And because I'm in contact with all of you, I just want to warn you that that's likely to happen. You know, all of our communication is subject to that. So I just want everyone to understand what the rules are, because I don't want anyone to run afoul of them accidentally.
So in that scenario, if one of the questions wasn't working and you contacted them to say, look, we want to change this, can you engage the entire
You-
committee
No.
electronically through email?
No,
No, you
that's
can't.
deliberation.
Okay,
You could send it to me or to Amy or to both of us at the same time, but you never want to reply all, because that constitute, even if if I sent you all an email, or if Amy sends out the agenda and one of you replies all and says, I don't think this item should be on the agenda for this reason, you're sharing information about your thoughts outside of the committee meeting, and that's not okay.
oh, well, it's okay.
So you
I
could
got it.
reply singly to Amy, or to Amy and I as I'm the chair, that's okay. And then we could send another out to you all, but under no circumstances ever, basically, should you
Go
reply
reply
all.
all.
Okay, reply all is verboten.
I got it.
So this is part of what makes it complicated and slow to do town work, because you really can't talk, and we essentially only have one meeting per month. So, when I say this, we need to decide on our goals, and we have 15 minutes left in our hour. This is the kind of thing that slows us all down. One of the important things to understand, I think, is where we're going and what our timeline would be. One of the important things that's coming up, one of the important milestones that's coming up, is that the budget process for the town will start in September. And if this committee intends to run an economic development study, and if that economic development study costs money, it's something that we're gonna wanna put forward as part of that budgeting process, starting in September. So that we ask for those funds, so that, we get those funds. And so it's important that we get this process going together and to understand what milestones we have to hit. But it's difficult to do. So with that understanding, I guess we return to this discussion about goals and what we might feel like is the most important thing for us to do as a committee moving forward.
Given it's really hard to get work done. Having a I'm being serious now, it's like having a third party actually give us an update on where we stand today and where we could potentially head from an economic development study perspective. Makes a lot of sense, because then that could be something that,
That can be.
and it's gonna cost money. If it's gonna be done right and done comprehensively and give us all the information we need about the town of Needham, not just specific zones in Needham. It feels like that is something that would be good use of our time to figure out, like, how do we get that to the town and in September to be part of the budget, to get something done and going sooner than later, because otherwise I feel like it's not gonna happen in until next September, right?
Well, yeah, I
Or
mean,
before
there's
that,
time,
right.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we just want to be aware of like
Right.
the budgeting process and the
Right.
cycle.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's fair to say that step one could be Amy helps point us all, in the direction of the existing studies or existing information. I'm not, some of them are very old, and it's questionable whether they're still accurate. But all of the information will help to at least give us a background. I mean, a lot of the sessions that we've done thus far, and if you guys are new and you haven't seen them, we had a visit from John Bullion, the chair of the assessors, who talked with us about how the assessments were done. And we talked with Lee Newman, the director of planning, who talked with us about things that are sort of on deck to happen for development in Needham. All those meetings are viewable on our town YouTube page, so you could go back and watch some of those meetings. I think it's a really good way to kind of make sure that we all have some of the similar information, and this would be another one. So if
Yeah,
you don't
compare
mind
those,
bearing all that out, so we could all read up and get prepared. And then I think you and I and Lise could talk about collating all that information and potentially scoping out what a economic development study would need to show us, where we are, and then what we would hope to achieve with an economic development study. And we could kind of turn that into a proposal that we could get feedback on from this group, again, reply, not reply all. So that in our next meeting, we could talk about how to move forward with that, and potentially plan a visit to the select board to get the go-ahead to move forward. And then, as you say, have the consultant do the work outside of the meeting, which really frees us up from this restriction.
With respect to a economic study, do these things typically, so I'm hearing all these ideas from everyone. Is that something that can help us clarify what our goal should be? Like, would they basically kind of do all this analysis and say, you guys are really strong here, you may need some work here? Would that help define what the goals of the committee could be or should be? Or is it really up to us to say, this is the direction that we want to go in? So concentrate on this area with respect to the study. How do those typically work?
Well, I would think that our first goal would be to provide this study, so that we understand what the recommendations from an outside source would be. And then within the context of that, we would have to make a roadmap and a work plan.
Right.
And that might be something that a consultant would help us with as well, but I'm not sure. I think those two things are separate to some degree.
I so totally agree with, we should get that in front of the select board and get to town meeting, but that seems like as you're saying, it's kind of a very long process to get there, because, you know, that town meeting would probably be in May where we get the funding, and then we would get that economic data, I don't know, like 6 months after that, so sometime in 2026. So I'm wondering if there's still things that we can do and even have those goals of getting that data within this group. So, you know, the collated information is great, but having, you know, again, that commercial real estate folks kind of share their thoughts on the town of this group, so we can at least start like getting some
Yeah.
ideas of what are some near-term things we can do.
Yeah.
So I think we all want to be effective and impactful here.
I think we can have multiple tracks in
Okay.
parallel, for sure. We don't have to just work on one thing at once, but if we've got a larger goal, and I also think that it would be, especially with the Envision project and some of the requests in the context of that project, one of which was economic development. There's no reason that if we get our act together in time, could bring this to the select board in advance of town meeting. I don't know what the financial ask is. Amy and I were discussing some of the work that MAPC does, they do for free. Some is paid work, and it's not clear to me what this would be, frankly. Or that we would use MAPC. I mean, this is all just in the beginning stages. But so there is a town meeting happening in October, and given the Envision project, I think that there is sort of an understanding that this is really important information that's wanted, you know, last year. So it could be something that's very high priority, and it could go well before May, but you're right, we can't count on that, and so. But certainly, there's lots of information that we could gather in the meantime, and putting together more information, having Dave Davison come and visit us, having putting together a real estate forum that you've mentioned. There's certainly something that we could do in the meantime while all these other things are in process. Adam? Oh, sorry.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
I know these are big goals. I've always been frustrated, you know, with the Walgreens park, it's the weeds in front of Walgreens, so I went and kind of worked on it a little bit. And like, at least I got weeded out, but it did two things. One is, if you walk around City Bars, work at City Bars, and they plant flowers and they make it more inviting. And we don't seem to do that as much in Needham, do we have, I don't know, City Bars, can you set up a 501c3, a nonprofit that would be to enhance the image of the downtown? Is there something that exists like that where you can
So
donate?
the town does some of that, but only on town property. So for example, the planters that are on the corners at Great Plain and Highland Ave. Those have flowers, and those are kept up by the town, but Walgreens is private property, and so the town wouldn't do that. If you're asking if there's a neighborhood association or something that
Yeah.
could be responsible for that, that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, I just, somebody replanted the planting, the people that own the garden center replanted everything on Chapel Street. Did you see that? At least it's nice. It's something that,
Yeah,
so I think that would be a small.
sort of an adopt a highway kind of situation, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I don't know how the city boss can put flowers on every light stand and it's inviting, it's, creates an image.
Yeah.
And the second thing this little project brought me to is that I didn't realize who owned, the building, do you know Building McQuillan?
Yep.
You know Building McQuillan, do you know Building McQuillan? So Building
Well, those
McQuillan,
properties.
but
He
he's a
owns some
pretty
real estate here.
innovative guy. So he owns 2 big properties downtown Needham and another one. I don't know if you've ever actually talked to him about, well, he has a commercial side, what we would do to downtown Needham. I mean, if you, he also, he probably, people remember Taylor's. No one does. Taylor's,
Yeah.
Taylor Stationery Store, that's his father's. And he still owns that building. So, I think get engaged with getting the commercial owners involved to see, just talk to them and see what his vision would be. But it'd be nice to get this, I would like to enhance the beauty of the town.
Well,
And maybe, I don't know if it's,
and I
but,
think Dina had a similar
yeah,
idea, so maybe, while we're here in this meeting, you guys should talk.
Well, I was gonna say, what about the revitalization trust fund? On Paul Goodye's, because I'm just looking like this is on the town website. They appointed the Needham Community Revitalization Trust Fund in June '99. Purpose of the committees receive gifts, bequeaths, so we use this towards improvements of public common areas in town. Improvements will consist of items such as benches, sculpture, artwork, hardscape, lighting, etc.
Yeah,
oh,
So.
so I think, all of these are really good ideas.
silly,
I'll take a look.
But
Oh, yeah, that's great.
It definitely still exists, and Paul Good is definitely still
Involved
involved.
in it?
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
all right.
super happy to talk about it. What I think is that we want to make use of existing committees as much as we can. Remember, though, that those committees have their own projects and their own things, so we wanna just, approach them in the spirit of collaboration, and I think wherever we can collaborate on these ideas, I think it's great. Remember that you can discuss with members of other committees at,
Can I just add one quick thing?
yeah,
Is that, just to respond to your, comment about beautification, in most communities, those types of efforts are paid and supported and executed by external 501(c)(3). So for example, I ran Dedham Square Circle in Dedham for many years. There's Dedham Civic Pride Committee, Dedham Civic Pride. They just focus on, flower pots in the square and in traffic circles around town. The Wellesley Merchants Association, they focus on that. What you may be referring to in Boston, I don't know exactly where, but it's probably a business improvement district where funds, there's sort of an extra fee or a tax that goes on top of the property owners, and that those funds have to go back into the business improvement district to be used to improve that area. So generally speaking, it doesn't come out of, the operating budget for a city or town, but they are sort of external groups that do those kinds of efforts.
Get sponsorships from.
Yes.
so, Adam, very quickly, because we're super short on time, did you still have a comment you wanna make?
Yeah, if we're at the point where we want to do this economic development study, which is a great idea, which can take, months and a year or more before we really get any kind of substantive data, we can again work with the existing business inventory that we have, and maybe it sounds like there are some, larger tech companies, at our board here that may have internal resources that could take that data, Amy, that you and I, wanted to do years ago, and then categorize it by business type, and then we know and do that, updated pie chart of what the existing composition of our business is townwide, and then as a committee, we can come up with, I think, some of our own, economic development goals overall, and set that picture, and then because that'll allow us to start to do the work, and instead of waiting and delaying for months and months and months and being dependent on those goals, after that economic development study is done, I think there is an opportunity that we could, do some a little more of that work sooner rather than later. So,
Thanks, Adam. Lise? Did you still have your hand up?
Just real quick, I am, I just wanted to take it off, but I'm here, I was trying to do my audio. The Boylston Properties is very involved with the Restoration Trust Fund and has been very kind to Paul Good, given the mural and kicking in for Needham. And they have a very high level person now living in Needham, Michaela, she's on the board of the
Alright.
chamber. She lives over on, again, but also I'm available to talk with anyone. I know, Jake has reached out to me. I'm on vacation, so I am having coffee with him. I believe I'm allowed to meet with any of you one-on-one. I can give you a lot of history on a lot of these things that people have talked to, and I know we're really observant of the time.
Thank you. All right, so we're trying really hard to keep to the hour, because I know everyone has to work, so, look for an email from Amy with a lot of this background information and potentially some more questions. Maybe we can gather, like we can do a little committee survey about goals and so on, and maybe we can gather some information that way as well. And we will continue to move forward. I love that there are so many people here. I feel like this has been really helpful. So the more that we can meet in person, the better, but of course, I understand that's not always possible. So if,
Can I ask a
Nobody-
question? Are you planning a meeting in August?
yes, August,
Eighth, I think.
yes, August 8th, I think. It's usually, so right now the schedule is the second Friday of every month, 8 to 9. So if no other questions, or even if there are other questions, because it's already past 9, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? Excellent. All right, since we're virtual, we have to do a roll call. So Lise? All right, well, we'll come back to Lise. Andrew?
Agree.
Yes.
Yes, it's here.
Okay, I see your yes, Lise. Okay, Dave.
Yes.
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 Yes,
And the chair votes yes. Okay,
Yes.
thanks. We got you, Adam.
I love your building.
Yeah, there's a little glitch online.
You development there.